Hey everyone, Andy Rafael from eTeknix.com, and we are doing another build. And we're not just doing any old build, we are doing pretty much the most powerful PC system you can get right now, featuring the AMD 5800X3D and the beast, the mammoth RX 6950 XT. But this is the Sapphire Toxic version, which is absolutely crazy. And everything's going to be going inside the Corsair 4000D Airflow, one of my favourite cases since its launch. RM850X power supply, X570 Aorus Extreme. I told you, we are going full hog here. And of course, my favourite air cooler, the Noctua NHD15S. Storage-wise, we have got somewhere down here, Firecooler 530 from Seagate, a 2TB drive, Gen 4, lightning fast, blistering speeds, and then same with the memory. I think this is actually 4400 megahertz memory. I mean, this is pretty much one of the most powerful systems you can buy right now. So let's build it. But before we get into that, here's a quick word from this video's sponsor. Hello mate, you alright? Yeah, just got all the bits from my banging new gaming PC. Just got to put it together. It's going to be so much better than yours. Oh, right. What did you get then? The latest Intel 12th gen processor, a feature-packed motherboard, and 32 gig of DDR4 memory. See? Miles ahead of yours. You realise that board needs DDR5 memory, don't you? Don't tell me you went and bought the wrong stuff. DDR4 is so 2014. I can't believe you was that stupid. What? No, you're joking. What should I get then? For me, I'd be looking at Corsair's newest Vengeance DDR5 kits. Or, if you're wanting that all-important RGB, then go for the Dominator Platinum RGB. Oh, you are a lifesaver. Thanks, but where can I find out more? By clicking the link in the description below, of course. And you call me the stupid one. So let's get started with the motherboard. Anyone who's seen any of my build videos before will know that I like to do as much as I physically can on the motherboard before I even get anywhere near the case. And we are starting with this. I mean, this is probably the most beastly X570 board on the planet. This is the X570 Aorus Extreme. This was actually the first X570 board on the market that didn't have a chipset fan on it. I mean, that's how good the cooling performance on here is. This has basically got every single feature you can imagine. And to go with it, we want to go with the very best gaming processor right now, which is the AMD 5800X3D. Now, we did get this a little bit late, but we know, even from our initial testing and what we saw from other people and kind of what they've done, this is the daddy, the beast. You know, 12900K got nothing on this. I mean, it does. They're very, very similar. But this is AMD's way of saying, you know, we are here, we're in the fight, we still have the upper hand to a certain degree. And this, I guess, is, you know, the last kind of big hurrah before, you know, the new platform comes from AMD with AM5. So, yeah, it's a nice kind of final way of sending it off to the, you know, the PC DIY tip in the sky, heaven in the sky. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. But this is what we've got. So 5800X3D processor in there, and because of obviously I think it's patented technology, the 3D cache and the way that works, this gives absolutely amazing performance in comparison to kind of, you know, your bog standard 5800X. I mean, who wants that anymore? That's like, you know, terrible in comparison. I'm joking, the 5800X is still a very, very good processor. So I'm just grabbing my handy dandy eTeknix toolkit because, you know, we are going to need that when it comes to installing the SSD. But let's get the memory out of the way. And I thought quite fitting, because we are using an Aorus motherboard, that we should be using some Aorus memory. So we've gone with 16 gig. Admittedly, we could go a little bit faster. Faster? I mean, higher capacity, but there is a reason. I said this is, you know, the most powerful PC you could build right now. Give or take, you know, personal opinion, stuff like that. But I want to give it kind of a little bit of room for future proofing. And one of the big things is if I went for a larger capacity, such as 32 gig across two 16 gig modules, or if I went for 4 sticks at the speed, which is 4400 megahertz, it's probably not going to work anyway, because memory can be a very, very kind of fickle thing. So instead we're going to play it safe and go with this, because I don't want to, you know, go to build this PC and then realise that it doesn't work. So there is a little rhyme for anyone who doesn't know and hasn't seen any of my videos before where I've talked about memory, but roses are red, violets are blue, put your RAM in slots 4 and 2. So as I mentioned at the start, I like to get as much as I physically can on the motherboard before I even get anywhere near the case, because, you know, I don't want to have to, you know, sort of try and get things in while other things are in the way and so forth. So, handy dandy eTeknix screwdriver kit, available on store.eteknix.com. Never leave home without it. But what we're going to do is we are going to take the top heatsink off of here so we can put in our NVMe drive. And this is the NVMe drive. So this is the Seagate FireCuda 530. It's Seagate's latest drive, blistering fast speeds. I'm talking 7,000 megabytes a second read speeds. I think it's just short of that, about 6,400 something write speeds. But this is the bad boy. This is the Don, the one. This is what it's all about. And obviously, because we are using X570, we get access to those blistering fast speeds. So, you know, no problem there. And it's 2 terabytes. So if you want to install Call of Duty Warzone on here, you can have no problems whatsoever. So we're almost there. The next thing we need to do, and this really only counts for air coolers. You can, if you are using an AIO, you can kind of prep the motherboard as much as you physically can by the sense of taking off the retention brackets, putting on any other brackets that may come with it, just so when you've actually got it in there, all you've really got to do is fit the radiator and kind of have the tubes go around. But let's talk about the cooler. This is the Noctua NH-D15S. It is probably my favourite cooler. Yes, you could go for the D15, but performance-wise, D15 to the D15S, there isn't a huge amount in it. So you might as well just go with the D15S, save yourself some money, and I don't know, buy a game or something. So first step, when you are installing the D15S on an AMD motherboard, you want to take the retention brackets, the standard ones, because it doesn't need them. But obviously, depending on the cooler you're using, you may want to check because each one is a little bit different. Then what we need is our little AMD brackets, which are here. We're not going to use these Intel ones because, you know, that's for something else. So we're going to use the AMD ones. We do actually want to keep the retention bracket on there. So what we can then do is screw everything down onto there and away we go. Okay, so brackets are on there. Everything's looking good. Now we need to actually get the CPU cooler itself on. And like I mentioned, this is the D15S. It is the Chromax version, so it looks absolutely amazing. It's actually going to go really, really nicely with our kind of black theme that I'm going with, which I didn't intentionally do. I just sort of had a look on the shelves and decided, what am I going to use? What parts are going to be, you know, amazeballs? And went from there. So if we take that fan off, we'll be using you in a little bit. And also, Noctua doesn't come with a little sticker, but depending on your cooler, make sure it hasn't got a sticker on there. The amount of times I've seen people sort of, yeah, my computer's overheating and I have no idea why they left the sticker on. Never done it myself, honest. So, thermal paste. We are going to be using Noctua. This is NTH1, and we are going to go just for the nice and simple P method. So we're just going to have a nice, I don't even know why it's called a P method, because P's are quite large. I think it should be called the petit pois method, because, you know, petit pois are a little bit smaller. Once we've got the thermal paste on there, it will look a little something like this, and then we can take our cooler. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm going to let you into a little secret, because on this cooler, as you look at it, it has a slightly different angle here to here, and there is a very, very good reason for that. It's to actually avoid the VRM heatsink at the top of the board. So you actually want this kind of more longer angled, elongated bit to sit up there. So we're going to put that on like that, line it all up. They do give you a screwdriver, but with the handy dandy eTeknix screwdriver kit, you can actually extend it so you don't even need to use the screwdriver that Noctua supply you. I mean, you know, kind of feels inferior to me now. Obviously, I might be a little bit biased, but, you know, I am. So with our cooler on there, we can then take our fan, move the cable that's stuck between the fins, and put that on. And obviously at a later date, if you want that extra performance and you want to turn this essentially into a D15, you can just get another fan and put it on the other side, and all the brackets and everything come with it. CPU fan header onto the CPU fan header, and we are done. Basically, we now have, essentially, without a graphics card, a fully fledged built PC with some of the most banging parts on the planet. But now we need to get it into the case. But there's a few things I like to do before I even get started putting it into the case. So the first thing I like to do is remove as many panels as I physically can, just because it makes your life a little bit easier. And you know, I don't know if it's just me, but if my life is easier, I'm a happier person because of it. Now I will warn you, with this case, we have actually used it before. I think we've done a couple of builds in it, and we've also done a full review on it. So if you want to check out the 4000D Airflow, I actually use I want to say 5000X RGB, so same case, just slightly bigger, has RGB and less airflow. But because we have used this before, I am pretty sure, as I get these accessories out and I see they're looking quite light, we're probably missing all of the screws. But you know, we'll soldier on through. Now, some eagle-eyed people might be looking at this case and thinking, Andy, that's a very, very small mid-tower case, and you'd be right. And obviously we're using a very, very large board, because this board is actually eTeknix, but we're not going to have any problems installing this, because as we go to put it in, we're going to notice that it can in fact take eTeknix. It just looks, you know, a little bit different. And the reason behind that is this case, along with the 4000 series, 5000 series and 7000 series, has this little kind of bracket plate thing here, and you can actually shift it. So if you're using ATX, shift it that way. If you're using eATX, shift it the other way, to give you just a little bit more room and still having lots and lots of room for cable management. The other cool thing with this case is you can do this. I know that's a lot of expensive hardware right there, and it's just kind of hanging there, but very, very good reason. The middle standoff is actually more like a prong, so it kind of sits there, which makes filming like this so much easier, because I can just sort of show you guys what's going on if you really wanted to see me screw down 8 screws. It's not the most exciting time of your life, is it? Okay, so motherboard is in. Now we need to do the bit that I know everyone absolutely adores, and that is all of our front panel connectors. So we'll start with our USB. We'll put that in over here. I hate USB connectors, especially USB 3.0, 3.1, 3.2, whatever you want to call them, USB 3 in general, because they're the biggest connector in the world. And you know, everything is moving more towards Type C now. So can we all just agree that Type C is the way forward? We ditch normal USB and, you know, use adapters instead. Now, one thing that Gigabyte actually do supply with this particular motherboard, this one right here, the Aorus Extreme, and this is why you pay more money for it, is one of these. Basically, what they've done with the motherboard is they've tried to make it as simple and easy as possible to, you know, get everything up and running. And when it comes to your front panel headers that everyone absolutely sort of, let's say, adores and loves, they just make it easier for you. So what you can actually do is put everything onto here and then plug it in. And that is why this board is so much more expensive. No other reason other than this. I'm only joking, of course. Okay, so cable-wise, we are done. And I've got to admit, I mean, it's not looking too shabby. I have seen worse things. Obviously, I could clean this up, but I'm not gonna, because, you know, this isn't being made for someone. It's just being made for the purposes of making this video, because that's just how it goes. Now, we need to talk about graphics cards. But before we do that, I want to talk about the power supply. For one reason and one reason only, when it comes to mid-tower cases, especially ones where you're trying to put in the largest and most powerful components, that's where you find a little bit of a sticking point, because there are 2 little connectors up here called EPS power connectors. And on this particular board, I can't really see it, but I'm assuming it's 2 8-pins. It is 2 8-pins. So with these 2 8-pins, you're going to struggle getting in there unless you've got, you know, the hands of like a small child or something. So we need to try and get in there. Ideally, what you would have done is actually threaded them cables through these kind of little holes up here. You can just see my kind of finger wiggling about, and we would have done that in preparation, but I'm not that smart. So we're going to try and do it now without ripping our hands to pieces. Huzzah, I did it. I'm the boss, I'm the man. Who did it? I did it. Did you do it? No, you didn't. Right, this is what we've got. So we've also got the power supply out, and we are using the Corsair RM850X. This is going to be more than enough to power this whole build, and it's fully modular, and it's 80 plus gold. I mean, what more do you need? So we've kind of worked out what we need. Obviously, we have our 2 8-pin EPS connectors. We have our 24-pin already on there, and we have a couple of PCI Express cables as well. So we're basically good to go. Can't actually remember how many PCI Express that graphics card has, so we might have to add another one very, very soon. But we're going to put the power supply in, but we want to put these connectors in as well. So if I turn this around so you guys can see a little bit. Now, depending on your case, it may go in from the back, it may have a bracket. On this one, it actually kind of drifts in from the side, like something out of a Fast and Furious movie. The original one, not the, like, you know, ones that aren't actually about cars anymore. What is with that? So if you get to this point where you go to put your power supply in and you realise it's a little bit tight, one of the main reasons is the HD audio cable. The other one is the fact that the hard drive cage is kind of restricting things. So luckily, on a case like this, which is an absolute beauty, we can unscrew the thumb screw here, unscrew the other thumb screw just over here, and then with a little bit of jiggery pokery, he says, we can take this hard drive cage out, along with the foam that I definitely didn't forget to take out. And then this should actually make getting the power supply in so much simpler. We can put these cables around like that and we can screw it all down. Obviously we are going fan facing down because there is a little bit of exhaust with a handy dandy little dust filter at the bottom. Okay, so with our power supply installed, we can look at plugging in the rest of these cables, of which we have a 24 pin. And the thing I love about this board, and this is probably one of its coolest features, is the 24 pin, and frankly all the connectors actually sit kind of at right angles out the board. So it just makes cable management so much cleaner, so much nicer, and just easier to do, and just looks pretty baller. Yeah, I said baller. Right, now before we actually talk about the graphics card, I want to take this fan out the front because we are not going to need this fan. I know what you're thinking, Andy, what are you doing? Like, this case only comes with 2 fans. Why are you taking one out? You know, you're only going to be left with 1 fan, which is this piddly little 120mm. I say piddly little, it's pretty standard. 120mm in the back of the case. But for anyone who doesn't know, the graphics card we're using, which is the Toxic Edition, 6950 XT. I mean, you know, it is in pure rasterization. I'm not talking about ray tracing. We all know Nvidia's got the ray tracing thing pretty much sewn up. We all know that they are all in when it comes to ray tracing, but 6950 XT is the daddy when it comes to rasterization, and this just takes it one step further. Not only is it pre-overclocked, but it actually has an AIO as part of the cooling solution. So what I'm trying to actually get at when it comes to the AIO is that's why we've taken this bit out the front, because the AIO portion of this is going to actually be sitting there, keeping our graphics card nice and cool. Worst noise in the world, am I right? But this is what the graphics card actually looks like. I mean, it's pretty pimping in terms of, you know, style and stuff. It's got this reflective kind of almost warped mirror effect, which at first I was like, well, that doesn't look very good. It makes me look fat, like I'm in one of them House of Horror things with the weird squiggly mirrors. But I gotta admit, once it's all lit up, it looks very, very nice. It takes 2 8 pins and 1 6 pin. It's got this lovely backplate. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not actually that long of a card because, you know, it doesn't need to be because it's got this part instead. Yeah. Okay, so graphics card wise, as always, there is sort of, you know, one way that I always like to do it, which generally means lining it up and checking out which expansion slots you are going to need to remove from your case. Generally speaking, it is the second one and the third one, but that is not always the case because a lot of it, see what I did there, is not always the case with the case. I should take this on the road. But what I'm trying to say is that generally speaking, it is the second and third slot, but it's not always the case, and you should actually check on your motherboard because it can actually move about, especially if you're using, say, micro ATX or something like that, or even an older motherboard where it used to be the first and second slots. So for the sake of, you know, the comments, because I know what you guys are like, I know what you're going to say, I have put the AIO in with the hoses at the bottom because I know 1 or 2 whole people viewed a video once and they went, do you know what? This guy in America decided to tell me that AIOs up the other way are detrimental to your system when they're not, right? I've built a million PCs with hoses at the top. Doesn't really matter. So I wanted to do this just to show you, frankly, that it's not possible because them hoses now are getting completely squished. So we're going to turn it the other way and just have it that way. And I don't care what anyone says because it's my PC. So with the AIO in the way that, you know, it actually goes, because this is how Corsair made the case, and you'd like to think Corsair, yeah, I mean, it's Corsair at the end of the day. I don't know why I said that in an Australian accent. It's Corsair. That's what it is, it's Corsair. It's probably the worst accent you've ever heard. But with the fact that Corsair, you know, you'd like to think know what they're doing, we've put it in that way and I think it looks very, very nice. Yes, the tubes come out a little bit, but once the glass is on there, it's going to kind of push them down away from the CPU cooler, and I honestly think it's going to look lovely. Don't know why I'm doing so many accents today. That was my attempt at Yorkshire, I think. So, putting the last PCI Express connector in there. It doesn't look beautiful at the moment, but we will sort that out with some eTeknix cable ties. Again, available on store.eteknix.com. Oh. So, let's get this sort of built back up to a certain degree. We can get our dust filter on the front. Looking very, very nice. If we wanted to, we could have obviously put the fans at the front. We may end up doing that. We might change it around, but just wanted to kind of do it straight out the gate, how the product actually comes, and go from there. So all the panels are on. Now, the moment of truth. And this is what separates the men from the boys. When we go like that, we probably realise we put a cable on the wrong way and it doesn't start. But there is power. Let's see what it do. It's alive. It's alive. And the beauty of that toxic graphics card is all the fans are going. There's no like extra weird and wonderful cables coming out. Yes, we have got to do a little bit of cable management down here, but the whole thing's alive. And that is all that matters. So what we now need to do is see how it performs in some games. Okay, so anyone who's ever built a PC, I'm going to say it's probably never gone 100% swimmingly every single time. And it was exactly the same for me. And I want to actually know how many people caught this. The AIO for the graphics card obviously came with the fans on there. And I ended up putting it in the case completely the wrong way. So I was actually exhausting it out the front. So we have switched it around, which now gives us this nice kind of RGB glow in the front. Looks a little bit nicer and yeah, shows that I'm human. I do make mistakes. But there are a few things we do need to do now that we have everything built up. First thing we need to do is go into the BIOS, normally greeted with this screen. We can go in and we want to set XMP. So we're going to set that. So now we're running at 4400 megahertz. The other thing we want to do, because we want to get as much physical performance as we can, we want to go into settings, go to, not that one, above 4G decoding, we want to enable that, and then we also want to turn on resizable bar or smart access memory. Basically, it's going to allow our graphics card and our processor to kind of talk to each other a little bit quicker, and it is going to give us some huge performance increases. We have actually got a video on that, so definitely go and check that out. We can save, get into Windows, and run some games. Okay, so first game up, CSGO, and already we're in the 300s. 300 FPS. I mean, that's a bit ridiculous if you ask me, but this is what we get. Pure rasterization, unadulterated performance. And we're trying to kill people with a Tech 9. We are against bots, and I pretty much got destroyed. Really hard to do, I will admit, when you haven't got sound. As you can now tell, I'm normally better than this. Funny story, we do actually play CSGO on our Patreon game nights that we do every 2 weeks. You can sign up using the link below, patreon.com/eTeknix. 380 FPS, anywhere from sort of 300 upwards. I mean, that's ridiculous. You're probably not going to buy a 6950 XT and run CSGO, but just in case you are, that's what you can do. Okay, so next up, Doom Eternal. If you haven't played it, I definitely advise doing it. It basically brings back my childhood. So we are cranked right up. We're at 4K, we're at Ultra Nightmare. Let's give it a whirl. And we are already getting 160 frames per second. Let's slice him up. I probably should have put a little bit of an age warning on here, because this is a very, very gruesome game, but an amazing game as well. And for some reason on this level, I always seem to die because of this bad boy. Not him. He's easy, but I don't even know where he's gone now. Yeah, have that. Take that. And then the eyeball as well, yeah, he's always there. But yeah, we are getting 150 frames per second and we're dying and having fun while doing it. Okay, so Horizon Zero Dawn, again, we are at 4K. This is a pretty graphically intensive game. We are at the maximum settings on here and we're getting 87 frames per second. I mean, visually, this game is amazing. I mean, look at it. The hair and just, you know, the environment, the reflections, everything looks amazing. 78 frames per second. Overall, pretty damn good, I've got to admit. run around a little bit more just so you guys can see sort of going into the dark, going into the light, and the frame rate's actually pretty consistent. 86, 90 frames per second. Not bad, not bad. So apparently we've got to do something over here. Let's give it a little scan. Yeah, 88 frames per second, not bad overall, and for a game that's pretty much one of the newest titles out there, I guess, still waiting for Forbidden West to obviously come to PC. But for now, 72 frames per second on this little cutscene, but overall around 80 to 90 FPS. So there we have it, not a bad little build, and I guess my last little way of paying homage to AM4 and sort of the latest generation from AMD until we see AM5, which should be right around the corner. Not been told any kind of concrete dates as of yet, and it's always one of those that really kind of changes as it gets closer to the date, but you can expect a lot of content from us for AM5. In terms of the build, very, very easy to actually build in this case. We've built in the Corsair 4000 series before. It is very, very easy. Everything, you kind of feel like you have enough space, but you're not left wanting more. And if you do want more, you can always go up to the 5000 series. Obviously, when it comes to the 5800X3D, the game sort of performance spoke for itself. It is an amazing processor, and we are actually working on some more content that's going to be 5800X3D versus 12900K, and maybe we'll do some other stuff there, testing 20, 25 games, so make sure you're subscribed for that. Other than that, the graphics card, it's a beast. It's a 6950 XT. It's the Toxic Edition from Sapphire. I mean, it is, in the grand scheme of things, extremely quiet because it has got the AIO kind of built into it, which isn't going to work for everyone, but obviously Sapphire do have other cards if you don't want to go down the AIO route. But yeah, I mean, you're not going to get better than that. It is a beast. And yeah, I think this system came out looking pretty damn sweet, and it performed absolutely amazingly. So there you have it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you like this video and you know, subscribe to the channel. It goes a long, long way in terms of helping us grow. And if you appreciate what we do and want to kind of see more of that, then yeah, sign up to our Patreon. Link is down below. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.